I just remember, just some of those interviews. The worst one though was before I went to Japan for a student visa. I was trying to go for work, and the way that things were set up for Japan, and maybe this was like you were talking about with the Japan work culture, was they were very strict for these companies
I remember you telling me.
were going to, like, if you wanted to go to Japan and teach English for these big hiring, for these big companies that were going to hire you to and pay for you and pay for your lodging, it was a very strict interview. And I've only done interviews for like creative companies, for things that I had a degree in, or relatable information, experience like this, like animation now and photography. But I had never really gone to school for teaching or teaching English.
Yeah.
It was a very new experience, and it was very bizarre. It was like another level bizarre experience of these like mass interviews. So you get a time, and it's not it's a 3-day interview process.
Really?
So there's 3 parts to it, and you have to pass each part before you get to the end. So if you don't pass part 1, you don't get the invite. So it's like a little bit of like a reality show, like the group gets smaller and smaller. So they only happen like a couple times a year. There was, luckily LA has a big enough group of a population that's like kind of a hub. But there's people who would travel from states over to get to one of these interviews if they would get an invite.
Really? So it's a three process.
It's a 3-day process. They give you part 1 before you even show up. You have to prepare like your own lesson plan of what you would teach the kids. And if you need a prop, you have to bring your own prop. But then you also have to show up like in a suit for the interview, which, that's something that I've also never had to do before in an interview, like dress up, in a suit and tie. So you show up, and it's not one-on-one interviews. It's a whole like group of people.
Oh, those are the worst.
Like 20 people in this group interview, and you start out, you watch slides about the company, blah blah, but then you have to present your lesson plan to the group of people, and the group of people aren't supposed to be like themselves adults being like, oh yeah, that was really well done.
They'd be the kids. They pretend to be the kids.
So everybody's like in suits, but they're all like crawling. You're all crawling on the floor, like pretending to be a kid.
That's so weird.
And some people are like, it's LA, so some people are like actors, so they're like really into it,
That's
so you're
so
like
weird.
So you're like, I brought a ball, and I'm gonna pass you a ball. I'm gonna toss the ball, and then I'll say something, and then you repeat it. Whoever catches the ball, kind of thing. So then you're like, toss the ball, and they're like, be like,
to a grown person.
Elephant. Yeah, they're like, elephant, like wearing a suit, like crawling on the ground, like fighting over the ball, being like, what the fuck?
I think I would just laugh.
like
what? How?
We're all like competing against each other. So like that's day 1. I think day 2 is like
just day 1. That's day 1.
That was like just day 1 is exhausting. Day 2, I think, is like the English test you have to take to prove that you understand English. And then I made it to like the 3rd day interview, and the 3rd day interview is a one-on-one where they ask you, but then they throw you a curveball, and it's going to be kind of think of like earlier question where the interviewer was like, I'm going to leave the room, and then I'm going to leave you with these, lesson materials. You have to come up with a lesson in like 15 minutes. What? When I come back into the room, I'm going to be a child, and you have to try to like engage with, you have to try to teach me these materials.
That's so weird.
It was so awful. And I was just like heart racing and just being like, what am I just want to like leave. So I'm trying to like put together something. I don't know what. It's hard enough to put together like an answer last minute. So she comes back in, but she's not like a response. She's not like giving me anything. She's supposed to be, I guess, like a kid who's like not interested in your lesson materials, like on purpose. So she's like staring at a wall, like tying her shoes.
God.
And you're supposed to like try to get her, but it's awful. You just want to be like, hey, like I'm talking to you. Like, could you look at me? and it's supposed to be on purpose, you know, like
That's
what are you gonna do if,
like an
if a kid doesn't give you?
older person.
It was awful, and I was like actually glad I didn't get the job. I was like, I don't want to work with this company. I don't want to work as part of this like